Hello and welcome back to Just Your Normal Misfit. I am Ann Thomas, ADHD adult, parent, storyteller, and someone who's trying to learn and unlearn the ways we love and support our kids. Today's episode, we are joined by someone who understands both strategy and sensitivity, Aparna. Aparna has over 17 years of experience in content and communication and is also the mother of an autistic child. And like many of us, she is learning that even with all the tools and frameworks, parenting doesn't come with a playbook. We often talk about early signs, early interventions, but what happens when the kids grow older? This is a conversation about transition, about how caregiving changes over the years, how caregiving shifts, how the emotional labor deepens, and what it means to parent a child who's growing up but may still need just as much support. Whether you're a parent, a teacher, or someone navigating your own journey, I hope this episode gives you comfort, a lot of ideas, some perspective, and less loneliness. Let's get into it. Welcome to Just Your Normal Misfit, Aparna.
Thank you.
How have you been?
I am so happy to be here. It is a privilege for sure.
Thank you so much. Let's jump right into it. Did you always want to be a mom?
Not really, to be honest. I had periods where I was vacillating. It sounded fun, but it also sounded like a lot. So there was one point where my partner and I, my husband and I, we were very clear that we're going to hold off for some time. But then this person, I thought, okay, this is a good time. And there was a point where I caught the proverbial baby fever. And I thought if I missed that window, I would not really want to have kids. And I know my spouse did want to. We decided to just go ahead and things just happened. It just slotted neatly into our timeline. But yeah, I had a lot of ups and downs in terms of that I wanted to be a parent.
Did you have a certain expectation of what motherhood was going to look like? Did you imagine something specific?
I think I initially glorified it. I was one of those parents who wanted to go to a coffee shop and read books and drink a cup when my child was sitting and coloring. Then I realized it was not going to be that way. I mostly anticipated myself having a lot of fun, teaching a lot of whatever I learned in life the hard way. Not teaching, but passing down some of my learnings to my child, whether they picked it up or not. I had the image of being a pretty cool parent, somebody who didn't really care about marks, somebody who'd want you to bring your friends home. But at the same time, I didn't want to be a friend. I wanted to be a parent. But yeah, I didn't have any expectation, but I saw myself doing a lot of things with my kid.
You did.
I did. There was this one time where I was very clear that if I have a girl, she's going to go to this school. If I have a son, he's going to go to that school. I was a little over planned about it in my head, but that was for a short period.
And you became a mother. What was that
Yeah,
experience?
it was overwhelming. So my child, my son, didn't sleep for 3 years. We were up all the gosh damn time. And I watched so much TV in the first 3 months of parenting. I think I watched about 8 or 9 series back to back because I was up all night. And yeah, my kid would be playing in a corner and I would be watching House or something. I remember watching all 90 something episodes of it in less than a week because I had so much time.
Game of Thrones.
I did not watch that. For you, it was Game of Thrones. All the time, I suddenly had so much time, but it's not the kind of time that I expected I would have.
Yeah.
See, when I look back, it seems really simple. But I know at that time I was drowning. For me, it was over 10 years ago. And now it feels, oh, fun. Wow, I watch series. But I know at that time I was such a wreck and I was so messed up. But yeah, as they say, the only way out is through.
Wow. And when did you figure that your child's needs were slightly different from others or he was responding differently? When did the signs of autism begin?
Honestly, I had red flags. I felt red flags as early as when he was about 19, 20 months. There was a lot of repetitive behavior that was highly unusual. And it was not that if we'd ask him to stop, it was almost as if he physically could not. And that was when I realized that, okay, this is probably a little beyond him. And he was a pretty delightful kid and everything. So at about 20 months, I raised an issue with my pediatrician. And because his eye contact and all the classical signs were okay, he assured me that you don't really have anything to worry about this, that. But as a parent, you obviously see him a lot more. So he did not dismiss my fears. I'm going to give him that. So he referred me to a developmental psychologist, and we took it forward from there. I don't know if I should use the word unfortunately, but I think in this context, unfortunately is the right word. He was extremely well behaved when we went for the first evaluation. That was at exactly 20 months. He was so cooperative. He was smiling. His eye contact was excellent. And then that's when we realized, and much later, we would realize that he has those phases. It's not like he never does that. He has those phases. And he was in one of his amazing moods. So the developmental psychologist was like, I'm sorry, you have nothing to worry about. You're overthinking this. You're overreacting to this. And then we come back home and the repeat behaviors are just on and on. And he started regressing. A few months later, we just saw like a steep regression. And about it took us another, say, 7, 8 months before he was formally diagnosed. It's not something I regret because I did all the right things, but sometimes I wish we could have caught it a little earlier and have those 7, 8 months with us as well. Honestly, when I look back now, I have more than one regret, but it's what it is.
Was that you alone seeing the red flags, talking about it, and the people around you, did they accept that there were challenges alongside, or was it like you're just making things up on your own? What was it like?
To be honest, it was only the spouse. Even the spouse thought that I may be overthinking, but he was very supportive. I'm not going to dismiss it. Let us work together to see if there is really something. When we went to the psychologist for the first time and she dismissed my fears, that was when the spouse also said, you know what, we heard from a professional that things are okay. So why don't you let it go? The calmer you are, the better things will be. But other than the spouse, and he obviously had the professional's word to back him up, right? So it was not like he was saying that I was overreacting, but he took her word for what it was. But everybody around me, whether it was both of our parents, even my bosses at work, everybody around me, except a handful of friends, thought it was some kind of woke, new age parenting that I came up with. At that time, I had a male boss, and he was a few years older than I was, and he had kids who were a few years older than my child was. And he says, you know what? I know kids who haven't even said the word mama till they were 5 and they're fine. I think you're just really overreacting. Why don't you just focus on your work and focus on other things outside of work and he'll be fine? So many times I wondered, how does me focusing on other things mean my child will be okay? It just didn't make any sense. So while people were not particularly unsupportive, they weren't really supportive either. I didn't have anybody who came up and said, hey, let me look and do some research for you, or let me. There were a few people who actually did put me in touch with people, etc. But I'm also somebody who's very persistent. So I had a few people who said, okay, you know what, maybe you can connect with this person and see how this goes. While I didn't get overt support, there were some people who supported me quietly. And I think the non overt support came from the spouse, where he didn't actively do things to help me, but he was very in sync with whatever I wanted to do. So he did help me out, whether he felt it was okay or not. His feelings didn't enter the picture. So that's something I appreciate even now. He was very neutral about it, but he just supported me for whatever I believed.
I've seen this with so many moms who always talk about this. Supportive environments are those that are not negating you. Unless somebody is truly standing and saying, no, what you're saying is nonsense, even a gentle, okay, fine, we hear you. But the whole point, there's this whole gaslighting piece which is going on, which makes you unsure of what you're saying is real or unreal. Is it just your motherhood, just the delivery process, just your hormones talking, or is this real that's going on? Yeah, I hear you when you say that.
Absolutely. And I also had people telling me stupid stuff like, oh, you didn't do this when he was a baby. That's why it's like that. You didn't feed him this. You stopped breastfeeding when he was 3 months. So it went down to, oh, there is a reason, especially when things started becoming clearer that there was an issue. The reasons were very. And I think when it comes to things like this, people want some comfort. They want somebody to put it on. They want some cause. They want to find a source. Unfortunately, for a long time, that source became me. So it's, oh, you were out partying and you were out at dinner till 2 days before your delivery. That's why this happened. He was exposed to loud music. That's why this happened. Or he didn't breastfeed after 3 months. That's why this happened. You went back to work. This is my favorite. You went back to work when he was 4 months old. That's why this happened. I'm like, okay, now I actually find it funny, and seriously.
But that's retrospect. At that point of time,
Ugh.
I'm sure it wasn't funny. It was quite hurtful.
Wasn't funny, but more than hurtful, it was so stupid that I didn't really give any energy into it.
Yeah.
Surprisingly, I had that maturity then. Honestly, I don't know if I'd have it now. Also, because that journey has been so emotional, so I don't know if I have that energy left. But at that time, I was like, oh, this is so stupid. It's not even worth half a second of my time. I was more of that mentality at that time.
I'm so glad you're saying that because when things were going difficult with my son, I would find ways to ensure that the blame was mine. Anything and everything was my fault,
Interesting.
right? Probably I was not available. Probably I'm not listening enough. Probably I'm not doing enough. And I'm torn apart trying to do different things. He was a colicky baby, so it's all my fault, the food that I gave, and he's only breastfed. So so many other things that popped up. So it just two parents, opposite reactions.
Very interesting you say that because for me, I had empirical evidence. So I was raised by my grandparents from the time I was 3 weeks old, and I was never breastfed. My mom was working, studying, everything. She was not even physically present after I was 3 weeks old. I had empirical evidence that all this is, if I may use language, bullshit. So I knew that this was not the problem because if that's the case, I should have been irrevocably damaged, which I was not. And I had seen, because my mom was in similar circles, she had friends who were working mothers as well. So I'm like, yeah, it doesn't really happen. And I was the biggest living proof. So for me, it was easier to dismiss.
Yeah. Having said that, what do you remember as one of the biggest challenges with just parenting your child at that point of time?
See, there's no one big memory. There are different core memories of it being incredibly hard at different points of time. When he was really young, we thought sleep was the issue. But then he started sleeping the whole night when he was about 4 years old. And that celebration was short lived. It didn't even feel like a celebration because a lot of other issues came into the picture. We were like, okay, what about school? And he's still not communicating. What do we do? And then when he was about, say, 6, then we got a formal ADHD diagnosis along with the autism diagnosis. So although we had school sorted, now we had other issues. The dark memories of each period, it's been replaced by a fresh dark memory. So I won't say there's one thing that was incredibly hard. The posts keep shifting, right? When they're 2, you have one set of issues. When they're 4, you have one set of issues. When they're 8, you have one set of issues. Now that he's just a few years away from being a teenager, now I feel a different set of issues. So it gets harder maybe, and it also becomes a different kind of hard. So you don't have any baseline. It's not, oh, we went through that earlier, so this is going to be easy to navigate. No, you don't have a baseline for what's coming next, so you don't know. I think that's the hardest part. The unknown is the hardest part.
Yeah, I thought teenage would be super easy for me because my son was always a teenager. In sense, he always had a mind of his own. He knew exactly what he wanted and what he didn't want. But as you said, the baseline doesn't exist, right? So now you're dealing with
Exactly.
something else altogether, and you're like, oh, now how do I parent this person? And where is the line between friendship and parenting? And mine is a teenager with ADHD. Yeah, it's so true. And what is that one surprising thing, or whichever surprising thing that everybody said was so real about autism or ADHD that you thought had to happen but didn't happen? It was just like, this was never an issue for me.
I think touch wood. I am so thankful. I'm not exactly a believer, but I'm so thankful to anything, the universe, energies, whatever. It's always, whether it's medical professionals, whether it's schools, whether it's people who, the special educators or the therapists or whatever, they keep telling you to be prepared for behavioral issues. They're like, okay, he might hit, he might bite, he might do this, he might do that. And as they keep saying, autism is unique. ASD is very different in different people. It presents itself differently. I am very privileged to call myself one of those parents who has a very highly emotionally intelligent child in spite of him being autistic. He has issues expressing his emotions. He has issues socializing. That is different. But in terms of how he picks up on emotions, his perceptiveness when it comes to the adults or even kids around him, it's just amazing. There's so many times if I'm really upset or if I'm sitting and crying, I've actually not got that comfort from adults around me, but I have my autistic, completely nonverbal child who comes, he just does this to my head, gives me some water, or he offers to give me something he's eating, and he just goes. But at that time, kind of support I get from him, there was one time where I was really upset about something else unrelated to him. He just let me and cry. Usually, he doesn't like touch or anything, but at that time, he realized that I needed it. And he was okay. He actually did that for me, where he let me hold him for a good 10 minutes and just cry it out. So that is something that really surprised me. And I feel it's such a huge privilege. And yeah, it's extremely nice.
How has it changed over the years for you? Because now you're saying he's going towards teenage, the expectations of parenting. What have you seen differently?
This is very interesting because I think there are two different parts to it. There's an external locus and there's an internal locus. Internally, obviously, that you have to do things differently. What you have been doing earlier may or may not have worked. And for example, a lot of people told me I started him in speech therapy when he was about 2 years and 3 months. And there was an expectation from me, from therapists. It was understood that because he started speech therapy early, he is going to speak by the time he is, say, 4 or 5. And then everybody told me, oh, at 5, he'll start talking. 5 came and went, he never talked. 7, 8 came and went, he never talked. 9 came and went, he never talked. And now I'm trying to reconcile to the fact that this is probably going to be at least 70-80% of how much he can verbally communicate. So that's something I'm trying to reconcile internally, for example. So there are many things like that that you'll have to start accepting, or you'll have to make that change from within. And then there is the external part of it, where I'll give you one example. This really comes to mind. I think he was about 4 or 5. I've been very, I won't say strict, but I've been a little restrictive about how much sweet he can eat. So I'm like, you can't just go grab whatever candy you want. Please control your whatever sugar you eat. So he would probably get a biscuit every other day, or he would get chocolate only on weekends, something like that. But whenever we went to the store, I would decide what I should get, etc. And that one incident also changed how I approached him. So we went to the store and he wanted something. I said no. And I was like, no, this is sweet and this is horrible. This is some crap. You can't take this. He asked again nicely. I said no. So I remember he actually picked it up. Like when we were leaving the store, when we were in the store, he did nothing. But when we were leaving the store, he just picked it up and he ran. And he was about 5 or 6. And no, he was a little older than that. He was about 7 or 8. And we have one word for it, right, as adults. It's blatant stealing. And then you look at that child and say, oh my God, my son stole something. And I just didn't know what to do. I didn't know what to do with him. I didn't know what to do with me. And I know that time it was cute. And probably he thought he was solving his problem, which for him he was, right? And if you see other people, the reactions were so different. They were like, oh, Parvaila, he's a kid. He doesn't know. What if it was 7 years later and he was 2.5 feet taller? People would not be so nice. People would not be so kind. So that shift. So I went back and I thought about it. I said, okay, fine. What did I do wrong and what did he do wrong? He asked me a couple of times. I kept saying no. Since then, touchwood, I haven't had any such incidents again. But I don't know if it's because he understands more or if it's because my approach worked. Now, whenever we go to the store, I tell him, Romeo, you're allowed 2 things. You can pick 2 things, whatever you want. I'm not going to say, okay, this has color, this has sugar. I'm just going to let you be. But you can get only 2 things and nothing more. If you've already picked something, consumed it, you can't go pick another thing because you've already picked one. So I try to be a little liberal, but within boundaries. So that made me go back and understand that I don't have to keep making decisions for him as a parent. And it's probably a small incident, but that's what happens, right? Even society, like I was saying externally, what people will tolerate from a 7 or 8 year old, they're not going to tolerate from a 15-year-old. And the 15-year-old is not a 15-year-old in his head. So, what people fail to understand is that you're physically looking at a 15-year-old and you're mentally looking at a 5 or a 6-year-old. So, how many people are you going to go tell? I'm okay with telling whoever I see, right? That's not a problem. But this is the external part I talk about, which gets harder. And I think when it comes to children, people want to understand them more. If it's a small child, they want to put that effort into understanding what the issue is. But then if you see somebody who's 20, do you want to put the same kind of effort? There is that bias, right? So, yeah, that's something that keeps me up at night.
You know what you're doing, right? You're interrupting my podcast.
Huh? Do you have any questions for me, Zach?
No, but I have a question. Why is this beeping?
Because it's not muted. If it's muted, it will stop beeping. Okay? All right. Can you now leave the room?
Now you can.
Thank you. The concern with age, right, is a conversation that keeps coming up with different parents, no matter what the neurodivergence that they're handling, right? The book that I was reading saying that somebody with ADHD is a 30%. You just have to consider just that their mental age is 30% lesser than somebody of their age. So will you give an 18-year-old a car? But if an 18-year-old with ADHD, you must ask yourself twice whether he's ready for a car or not, or she's ready to get on alcohol yet, because you just are not ready for the challenges that come up, right? And the conversations are constantly about, with a littler child, I can go to a mall, I can take them to a park. Now, as an older person, they're bigger. So how do I take them to a public space? What if they behave in a certainly different way? And what if somebody feels uncomfortable with that behavior? And that consideration will no longer be given, they were given as a child, right? And there are no spaces to be.
And sometimes what you were talking about public spaces, sometimes it could be your own home. For example, when you're teaching children physical boundaries, or you're saying, okay, this is the level of privacy you must maintain, etc. But say your 20-year-old still needs help. So these are not just right from minute micro things in your everyday life. Say somebody comes home and your child needs some help, either changing or he's not able to fit a button or something like that. And if people get uncomfortable in your own home, what are you going to do about that? So there's so many questions where we don't really have the answers to, and we just wing it and play it by ear. So it could be something as, like I said, it doesn't even have to be outside your house.
Yeah. So just this morning, I was thinking that I'm walking around and I'm changing in my room and my boys come in and out. Even if you see me in my underclothes, it doesn't make a difference. I want you to be comfortable with the idea that I'm going to be in my space and I might be in absolutely nothing, but you got to get comfortable with people who are wearing just a bra or not, or whichever, right? And because they're boys, all the more that that, so that you have to get comfortable with women and their bodies. So I just keep thinking, right? But when you look outside, oh my God, are you doing that in your home? Is that okay? What are you teaching your boys? What are you not? The questions, I think, at some extent, Apu, to say that we're just going to wing it throughout, right? Because that is what has helped us this far, right? Our gut and our two, you were pulling up the red flags and saying that something is amiss, and whether or not anybody else saw it, you saw it, right? Yeah. And the other thing that I was just thinking when you said that is that no, we're not very alone, because you and I have a community of people that are not doing it anymore on our own. Yes, we have to take the final decisions, but at the end of the day, you have somebody on your phone saying that I'm struggling with this. What do you think I should do? Or we have these ability today to have these Facebook communities, Insta communities, and this networks. And that's what we are trying to do, build networks.
Exactly. And then you and I've observed this, and I'm sure you know a few parents like that. We don't really wait to find parents going through similar issues to build that community. Sometimes it could be friends who have a totally neurotypical child. Without asking, if somebody says, hey, which grade is your child in? I just say, oh, my child is autistic and he doesn't go to school with a grading system. or with a classification system. I don't even know what that's called. That's how out of touch I am with regular schools. Right? So, yeah, I just tell. So sometimes it so happens that you start building that community. And even if it's a parent to a neurotypical child, they start empathizing with you, sympathizing with you. And because you're so open about your struggles, they are further equipped to do something when they see other parents or other children going through the same thing. So, in a sense, by not waiting to see that, okay, you're also a parent with a neurodivergent child and open up to you, my favorite word that I used earlier, oversharing, sometimes that actually helps building my community a little more, not just spread out, but also diverse. Like, sometimes you need the support of people who are not raising neurodivergent children because they're the ones who are going to explain it to other parents with kids like them, right? Yeah. Anybody who's defending you or who is speaking up for you or silently supporting you is becoming an ambassador for your child as well. So it's so important to not just build a network of like minded parents, but just talk to anybody and it's okay. That's something I've been doing since Romer was very young, and that's not let us down so far. Yeah.
I think that's what has helped me also be accepting of myself and my ways, and also to be open to somebody else's ideas in the sense that, okay, I was a big believer that whatever the pediatrician says, which is 6 months of nothing, no food, no water, nothing, and just breastfeeding. And I did that with my first child. And by the time I had my second child, it was out of the window because I saw that kids enjoy food and they like tasting different things, and it's not the end of the world. And I did everything by the book and it didn't really work. My child still hates food, and it has nothing to do with the child. It is his sensory issues, right? Yeah. And
Parenting. It's not like your parenting
not like
caused the
my
issues,
parent
right?
is doing
It's just,
it.
yeah,
Yeah, it was so much power I was
exactly.
giving myself, right? That I am a great parent and hence my child is this or that. No, it has nothing to do with me. I have two boys completely different from each other, and there's nothing to do, and the only common thing is me there. So, yeah, I completely get the whole be open, learn from, and just say what it is. This is where we are. But what are the things that you have seen changing for you as a parent, right? You said Romer at 3, Romer at 6, Romer at 11. How are you handling it? How are you dealing with it?
For me, it's very, I don't know. It has its positives and negatives. People expect, and they put a lot of expectation on you as well. When people say, oh, you're such a strong mother, oh, you handle it so well. Listen, I don't have a choice. This is my reality. I have to handle it. You're speaking like I have a choice, right? I don't. And the weight of those expectations, people would say, oh, you do so much for him, you sit with him so much. So there's that expectation, oh, if you don't sit with him for a few hours a day, you're not a good parent. There are times I just sit with him, I'm on my phone, he's watching TV, and I'm okay with that, really. I've learned to let go. But many times I thought that I would become a lot more positive and a lot stronger. But I see him grow. I don't know if I'm becoming a lot more stressed or if I'm embracing that stress. Maybe I was that stressed even earlier, but I was not accepting of it. I think the biggest thing that's evolving in me is embracing that stress. And earlier, I would try everything to not be stressed. Now, all you do is manage it because you know that the stress is going to come. And we used to think stress is a bad thing, a dirty word, this demon in our lives and stuff. But the more you just accept that it's going to be there, it's going to make it whether you want it to or not. I think that acceptance has really, because I was a wreck like the last few years. I wasn't doing great. But when I learned to accept that this stress is going to be a part of my life, so either you deal with it or don't, it's going to be there. That's when things started improving for me. I got a little happier, therapy worked better. Even therapy can do so much, right? If you are not willing to do the work. So the minute I started embracing that stress, it was, I'm still slowly on the recovery path, so to speak, of all the unhappiness that I believed that the stress gave me. But it is definitely helpful to learn how to live with that for sure.
Yeah. And also to just recognize the signs, right?
Yeah.
Recognize your physical, your mental being, and to be like, okay, this is happening to me right now, and I can't solve it, and I can do nothing about it. but it's all right. And can I somehow buy some time from somebody so that I'm away from all of you right now so I can deal with it? We've forgotten to accept that we don't have the support systems that probably your mom and my mom didn't have these either. But the generation
Mm,
before grew up together. There were these whole village system that was there, taking care of your child
that,
and your work and your
yeah,
needs and your day to day. You had a sister-in-law next to you or a cousin who was next to you who you would bicker about or talk to whenever something was getting heavy. But now you're dealing with you and your child, right? You and your child
yeah,
alone. Your
absolutely.
partner coming in and out, but most of the time it's all you. And that's a lot for
Abs.
anybody to be dealing with. And
Yeah,
parents in cities, different places, we go in, we have to find our own units, find our own support systems,
yeah,
structures, nannies. It's a lot. Yeah.
exactly. Yeah. And
Would
the other thing, like when you were speaking, I also realized this. I think the biggest thing that's changed for me, again, I don't know if it's good or bad, I realized that I don't have to be good at everything. Sometimes it's okay to just do the bare minimum. I'm not even talking about being a perfectionist. I'm just talking about being basically good at something. I'm starting to accept that sometimes the bare minimum is also fine. If you want to give your child a home cooked meal and you just give dal chawal, it's okay. It doesn't have to be nutritionally balanced all the time. Or if you don't get that 1+ rating at work, and if you've just met expectations, it's okay. I don't remember what I did at my job 10 years back, but I remember what Romer went through. I don't remember anything about my life or professional or work. I don't remember the meetings the day he got diagnosed, but I remember what happened in the hospital. So you start to understand and embrace what is important and what is not. And you start being okay with not being good at everything. And that's something maybe a lot of parents still don't, and maybe this is a very controversial opinion, but a lot of people would probably say mediocrity is not okay, bare minimum is not okay. I've heard things like, what are you teaching your child? But I'm just teaching my child that you don't have to just survive. If being happy means letting go of a few things, okay, just be happy. So we hear things like, oh, what do you want to be when you grow up? I want to be a teacher, I want to be a doctor. Nobody really says, I want to be happy. So that's something I'm trying to change even for myself.
I have a different piece there where I say happy is
Mm.
overrated, right? We've made this
Mm,
idea of what happy is uh,
yeah.
also a questionable because your perfection
Yeah.
vacations that you see on Insta or the children, that image of me sitting in a restaurant
True.
with my child quietly coloring and I'm having my tea. I've never got it, right? I have a neurodivergent child and a very neurotypical child, and I'm still not
Right.
getting it, right? And does that mean when I list the number of things that I do in a day to some of my colleagues, they're like, you must be really messed up. But no, that's what gives me joy to some extent. I
Exactly.
like having my
Exactly.
dogs sitting with me. That's a responsibility, but I like sleeping with my dogs and them coming and jumping at me. So, this idea of what happy is, and also having
Yeah.
sad days, also not being great, as you said, at everything, it's perfectly fine. Just what the definition of happy is become very questionable, is what I'm concerned about. Yeah.
I'm so with you on that.
Schooling, like you said, a big part of parenting, right? A big stressful issue. Oh, you're not
Yeah.
sending your child to school? Oh my God. You and I have gone through that piece a little bit. How has that been for you? Because it's not just about getting your child, it's about getting a child with multiple sensory issues to deal with an entire group of people who may or may not understand. And you've done it all differently. So, how was that journey for you?
Really honest, I think this journey hasn't been that hard for me because Roman's needs were so specific. Like he's nonverbal. He took a long time, for example, to get potty trained. He had ADHD, because of which his sitting tolerance was almost zero. So it really narrowed down our options. So when you don't have the rush to put him in a regular school with accommodations, when your options go down, the options that are left are options that are tailored for kids like him. So, in that respect, I was not so badly off. Because the schools themselves know that, okay, we are built to cater to these children. So for me, that was actually a slightly easier part. When we were in Bangalore, we moved out about a year ago. And when we were in Bangalore, he was going to a Waldorf school. So they had a lot about your physical body, spiritual body, all that, whatever they spoke about it. For me, it was a place where he was very happy. The learning, for example, it would be they would go for a walk and they say, okay, collect 8 stones or collect 5 leaves or collect 4 green leaves and 2 yellow leaves or something like that. It would be things like that. And he would absolutely love it. So I know that if I go ask a DPS, I just say DPS because I studied there. I'm not naming anything, but that's not the intention. But if I told them that can this accommodation be made for my kid, they'd probably be horrified. At least the system I went to, they would be horrified. So in terms of school, I haven't been that badly off because our options have been so limited.
You will be very surprised to know that in Bangalore now, DPS North is one of the most inclusive schools for children with neurodivergent.
Yes, it is. Exactly. Yeah, I would have never imagined it. Exactly. That is so true.
Sorry, I broke your.
But yeah. And the good part about schools is, right, we've also found a community in those schools. I'm still in touch with some of the so initially when we started this special schooling thing, we went to a very small setup. And it was somebody we really trusted. We're like, okay, let's just see what happens. And it also happened to be they're one of the few people who kept going on during COVID. And now she's become a good friend and a trusted advisor. And we go to her when we want to just vent, or I like sending her updates about Romil. And she also runs a lot of these communities, workshops. So we found a lot of solace in these schools for him, whether it was for him, whether it was for us. So my schooling journey has been probably a little more positive. Yeah.
Lovely. Because I think that's one of the most painful journeys that most people have, especially when you are not on the spectrum and you can just about fly under the radar and
Yeah.
fit in. That's where the challenge, and I think more than the school's challenges, also the parents' challenges in terms of accepting or the expectations that they make of a child and what should be or should not be. And it's very hard for some people to tell themselves that my child cannot do something and it's all right. So what else?
Yeah.
Yeah.
My spouse and I, we still have those conversations. How long can he go to a special school? We should think about mainstreaming him. And then we give him 2 weeks. And, oh, he's so happy here. What are we going to do? How is it really going to make all of us happier? Okay, happy is an overrated word, but how is it going to be a positive impact on all three of us? So we think those things. Do we want to mainstream him because we're supposed to? Or do we want to mainstream him because he's actually ready? So those are questions we keep asking ourselves.
Yeah. As long as we do, that's all that matters. To just
Yeah.
ask yourself those questions as to why we are doing certain things. What is the intention and what's the outcome and who is it for? I think that's the biggest piece, right? Who is it for?
Exactly.
I did this when Zach was younger and I was not sure about schooling him. I did this Google form and said, why are you sending your child? What is your expectation from school? And single-handedly, everybody said, I just want time for myself and I want them to make friends. And that's it. That was the two big reasons. So it's not about the child, it's about your needs. So why are we doing certain things? It usually boils down to me and what my needs are rather than what the child's need are.
Absolutely.
Let's talk about relationships, right? You've seen the child and how that has impacted your parenting journey over the years. How has that impacted your relationships with people, with you being such an important and a primary caregiver and giving so much of yourself? So, how does that impact your relationships across the years, and how has that changed over the years?
This is interesting because obviously relationships are the core of who we are as people. For me, it's really helped me to understand who my people are, who are the ones that I can just spill out to, who are the ones that will be there, who are the ones that can handle it, who are the ones that can't. And it's good to have all of them. It's good to have all those kind of folks. I'm very close to my friends, and it's strengthened some of my friendships. And it's also made me realize which are the ones that won't really handle not keeping in touch for too long or only talk about my kid, or if I show up stressed and not at my best, are those relationships okay? It's made me realize a lot of those. I'm very grateful for the people I have around me. I'm very grateful for you. I'm very grateful for a lot of people. In terms of how it is with our parents, whether it's the spouses or whether it's mine, it's very interesting to see the dynamics between Romer and his grandparents and how they affect the dynamics that I have with them. So when I see my in-laws give Romer unconditional love, and he's such a different person, he shines and he blooms when he's around them, and I can't help but not be grateful. So for me, my relationships move from a place of competitiveness or from a place of being validated, or whether it's I want to be loved or I want to be in touch all the time. It's evolved to a place of gratitude. I am grateful for the ones I have, for the ones that I had. But as partners, obviously, it really impacts you. I think the spouse and I, we are teammates first, roommates next, and being mates comes, I think. I don't even know where it comes. But the important thing is this is the primary relationship, and this is the relationship he's going to see the most up close. So we believe in maintaining a very healthy environment. And we are somebody, both of us are people who feel that all feelings are valid. It's okay to lose it occasionally. It's okay to yell at each other. But how you resolve it is very important. Resolution is probably the next theme of my relationships. Even a lot of my friendships sometimes have been overly blunt, overly stressed. I say things that I shouldn't have. But then when you're our age, you realize that the ones who stick around are the ones who are grateful that you say things that you shouldn't have, because they'd rather you say what is in your head than what you're just trying to say. So that way, I think gratitude and resolution has been a lot of what has been happening in my relationships. We moved about a year ago. We moved countries, we moved cities. I miss a lot of people. I used to be very proud, and this comes back to the relationship with myself. I used to be very proud that I've lived a life with no regrets. And when I was in my 20s, when I was in my 30s, it was so important to do things that you don't regret. But I realized now I'm in my 40s and I realize you're always going to think that you could have done it better. Always. And that regret is going to come. So you have to embrace regret. When we are younger, we feel regret is bad because we think that, oh, we did the best at that time. And then you start realizing that you're flawed, and you realize that, or you think that there's something wrong with you. And that's why regretting things is bad. The truth is, we are flawed. So when I look back, I have so many regrets, and starting to embrace them has been very healing. So that is how my relationship with myself has evolved. The biggest regret, I won't say the biggest regret, I have a lot of equal volume regrets, but one of the regrets I have, and it still cuts me deep because I can't go back and do anything. When Roman was diagnosed with ADHD at 6, we were advised medication. And I'm personally someone who does not take any kind of medication. I've seen what pill popping does to people. I'm very uncomfortable with it. It's something I didn't want for my child at all. Excuse me. And I refused medication for him. Then, when he was about 7 or 8, he was prescribed it again. And I had a long talk with the spouse, and we thought, okay, if he can manage without medication, but with therapy, let's try that. And I think, in my own personal belief system, which didn't even have any tangible roots to it, I think we just pushed Romer more than we should have. That is definitely a regret I have. It's not about, okay, I didn't give him the medication. If I did, would he have done better? That is one thing. But I made him collateral damage to what I believed. And that's something that makes me feel really bad. I'm trying to get over things like that. So when we had a diagnosis for silent epilepsy when he was about 8 and a half, and at that time we were told that as he becomes a teenager, he could get seizures with hormonal changes, and seizures are a lot more risky. There is a risk of those. Then we started giving him medication for the seizures. And it took me weeks to be okay with giving him medication when I refused to take medication for things myself. And it was something that I had to change about myself. My relationship with myself was, I kept telling myself, okay, this is something, how can you do this to your child when you won't even do this to yourself? Made me feel like a bad parent. But a lot of it, the theme for the relationship with myself, I think has been healing. Although when I was saying earlier, I embrace more stress and I'm comfortable with more stress in my life, I'm also learning to heal. And I think it took me a long time to get there. And that probably wouldn't have come. I also carry a lot of childhood trauma. I don't think a lot of healing would have come if I don't know, but the way I'm comfortable with it and the power of the whole healing journey I'm going through, I feel is a lot more because of Romer's neurodivergence. So many things get put in perspective because of that, and it's been good. So it's been very hard, but it's also been good to repair or heal or even forge a new relationship with myself. So that's how relationships have been.
That's a lot to even for me
Yeah, it is.
to just understand, because I see that every day in our day to day. Because with my child, he has huge sensory issues and food becomes a big part. And if I was to talk to a therapist, they will say, oh, that's normal for a child with divergence. You just have to ignore it. And as long as they're getting very, so even when I have seen you be so careful around sugar and how you careful with Romer and how much he gets, he's done his quota. You can't give him extra. And it's something that you look up to, right? Because that's something that I have not been able to achieve anywhere close to. And with my spouse, his biggest issue is with food and nutrition. That is his trigger point. And when he sees my child doing everything against what should be done, right? Or what is bad for him, it really upsets him and takes him into an helpless space. So now that helplessness where where you can't do right by your child or you can't get them to do this is a journey that we have to work on, right? And there are no easy answers, and we have to just work on those pieces. And when you talk about medication, I was against medication, and when my therapist said, no, we've worked on your trauma and there's clearly more here, and it could be anxiety, it could be your ADHD, but can you please go and get medication? Then I'm like, are you sure? What is going to happen? Oh my god, medication will change the way I think, etc. And I remember when I went into it with so much fear, and the first week I was just, the medication's not supposed to do anything to you. Apparently, it's been tested and it doesn't have any side effects, except that I was passing out and I had not slept ever during the day. And here I am in a meeting and I would be like, Thomas would move the laptop away from me and I was just passing out. And that happened for 10 days. And I'm like, I can't have this medication. This is not okay. It's just not done. And my therapist said, just hold on. Just hold on. Just let it go. This is all the stuff. It's your body, your hyper vigilance that is finally just slowing down. And now, once that medication finally took its impact, I can see the difference it has made. Earlier, a sensitive conversation like this would have me bawling. Everything would lead me to just tear up, and any emotion would lead to. And even though I can see through that emotional moment, people would get very upset, right? That why is this lady crying for no reason? But that's how sensitive I was to anything externally, and that is how I would respond emotionally. So that journey where I connect with you so much, but now that with that medication has helped me so much in the sense that I can have a legitimate conversation which could be so deep and so powerful like right now, and not break down, and I can really see it in pieces, right? So that is possible with medication. And I hear your fears, but please don't beat yourself up. We've all done the best we could and what we thought, right? And yeah, so that's one thing that's coming to me, that I hear you, I feel you. And yes, whether we like it or not, we are all flawed. As simple as that. I love what you said, right? When my marriage fell apart, the biggest realization was every relationship that I had was flawed. And that I think was the biggest learning for me at that point of time. And I know that we're just setting up money aside for our son's therapy sessions about how terrible a parent he has had to deal with, and our children will have to deal with. You talk about healing journey. I know that Roma is such a big part of who you are. You've gone back and said that you don't have to be number one at everything. And sometimes work is not the most important. You've prioritized him in every way. But how do you continue to just find your space and hold yourself and see yourself as more than a mother?
I think a lot of it can go back to my childhood. I almost raised myself. Both my parents were very busy. And I have always been my most valuable companion. And that's something I never want to let go of. And these are things you're not supposed to say as mothers, right? But I come first. You can't pour from an empty cup. If I'm not happy, I'm not going to make Roman happy. If I'm miserable, he's miserable. It's as simple as that. I always put myself first. If I want to go on a girls' trip, I do it. If I want to buy something, even if I have 10 dresses, I want to buy one more because I feel that'll make me feel better. I do it. If I want to buy that lipstick, I do it. Of course, I'm reasonable about spends and everything. But I won't really say that, okay, I'm not supposed to do this or I'm not supposed to do that. If it's something that makes me happy, if it's something that I feel is going to give me joy in that moment, I just go ahead and do it. It might sound very impulsive to some, but a lot of my instincts and a lot of my impulses have gotten me through a lot. So if that's my natural instinct, I'm not going to ask her to shut up. It's that simple for me. I think as moms, it's really important. I don't even know where this narrative or conditioning comes from, right? People keep telling you, oh, your child comes first. Not even child. Before you have children, your husband comes first, your parents come first. No one has ever come and told us, no, you come first. And even if you come first, nobody has come and told you that it's okay. And we need to stop chasing that validation. I think as women, as moms, we need to stop chasing that validation. Nobody needs to come and tell you that it's okay. If you think it's okay, that's all there is. But if you want to prioritize your family, that's on you too. I'm not going to come and say, hey, you know what, you're a woman, you can't prioritize your family. But whatever is okay internally is okay, period. And I think internalizing that mantra for me is what keeps me going.
I think we should record it and play it in every room, in every mother's room constantly. Yeah, I love that. Just prioritize yourself. I think that's a lesson I learned late in my motherhood journey, and that's fabulous that you've been on spot with it.
It's
So,
never too late and
yeah,
ever.
I know. Of course, every day, but I do feel that, yeah, should have started earlier, child, and gone away on your trip and just done your solo trips. You've been doing solo trips for years now. It's been fabulous. Tell us
Yeah.
about.
Yeah, I try to do it every year. So I've done about three or four so far. I did one long girls trip last year. That was a lot of fun. I try to do short getaways in between. Sometimes it doesn't even have to be a trip where you pack your bags and go. It could just be, oh, I'm going to crash here overnight. I've done that at yours. And sometimes it's completely impromptu where I just make a decision and say, hey, I'm not coming back till morning. Very important things behind this. One is obviously about taking care of yourself or prioritizing yourself or whatever I like to call it. The second part is also about having that faith and that trust that it's not just you keeping everything together. If you are not there, things will move on. Sometimes I actually look back and I reflected. I'm like, is it me that I don't trust people enough? My child has two parents, not just one. It's not just me. So, am I not being trustworthy enough that the second parent will pick up the slack? So, sometimes if you just let go and do it, magic happens. And that's what happened when I prioritized myself and I was so much happier, so much calmer. But coming back to solo trips, yeah, it could be something as impromptu as just crashing at a friend's place or something. I did Goa a couple times. I did about three different countries. That was a lot of fun. Something I intend to keep doing. And I also want Rome to understand that if my mom is gone somewhere for 10 days, she doesn't love me less. That's such an important lesson to learn. Or if my mom doesn't come back tonight, it doesn't mean she loves me less. That's also something that's really important to me. So, at the back of my mind, when I decide to take a trip or go out with friends, it's also something that I keep. So, that's something I want him to know that And probably as parents, I don't know if you're allowed to say this, but I'm going to say it. It's important for our kids to know that the world doesn't revolve around them or our world doesn't revolve around them. They're a very important part of it, yes, but everything is not about you and it's okay. That aspect of raising kids, it's because we are not supposed to say things like that. We're not supposed to be like that. But for me, a lot of the ethos behind it is this.
How does Romer cope with you not being around?
Fabulous. He loves it. Many times he's very receptive to me. He's very open to what I say. He listens to me well. He's an obedient child, yada, yada, yada. But when I'm not there, it's not like he breaks loose and does everything I don't want him to, but he also uses that as an opportunity to relax. Like I see him relaxed, and when I go back, I see him give me a hug and a kiss. If I tell him I missed you, he says I missed you too. But it's been pretty healthy so far. I really hope I can maintain this level even as he's growing up. He's used that as an opportunity to relax, do whatever he wants, get an extra TV time. Okay. And if I'm not around, I'm not going to micromanage it. That's always been something I've been very particular about. If somebody is taking care of my child, I'm not going to tell them how to do it. So they can do it their way. If it means a little extra TV time, okay. If it means a cookie, okay. So what? One cookie is not going to damage him permanently. So he's relaxed. I'm happy. He's happy. It works.
In terms of getting an assessment is not just about having to deal with it. It takes a lot from, especially the primary caregiver, which usually is the mother. She gives up her career sometimes. She has to balance so many things. She has to rush home early. How has that been for you? How has it impacted your work and your career?
This is a question that really fascinated me when I first saw it as well. I have a super supportive spouse. In fact, when we moved, it was my decision. I had a work opportunity that I decided I would grab, and he said, "Okay, whatever you want, I will support you through it, etc." That way, I've been very happy. I've been very lucky, rather, to have a supportive partner, a supportive family. With that said, work has always been something that I've had to accommodate around my child. And this is something I've always felt, and it's a very intrinsic feeling. I felt it from day one that at that time I was working for a very large company. I'm like, this place has 300,000 other people. My team has 20 other people. My child has one mother. I still stick by that. And that has been one of my main uh, policies wherever I've worked, whatever I've done. I've made sure that work doesn't consume me. Even if it stresses me out, I make sure it doesn't consume me. I'm not going to say I'm a mother first or everything. I would still prioritize myself. But I feel, in terms of how I would be missed, the topmost would be with my child. So, that itself, if you ever feel that, okay, what is really important or how important am I to someone, try to think of it in terms of how much they will miss you or how much they will need you. Who would be the most impacted if I was not there? The first would be my child. Who would be the next most impacted? I have a few people that come to mind. Who would be the least impacted? It would be the people at your workplace. You're so easily replaceable. That replaceability factor is what drives me. I was never a very ambitious person. I wanted a job. I didn't want a career. I didn't want to be the next CMO or CXO or anything like that, but I wanted to grow. I wanted to do well. That was about it. But now I realize work is so important, not just for, and it's not about the designations or the titles, right? Work is important because it allows me to be more than a mom with special needs. It allows me to have a double life, so to speak, that I crave. It allows me to be somebody else for a good part of the day. It allows me to switch off and forget, and it allows me to be my best with Romer. I try to put it in perspective in terms of what my career does for me or what my work does for me. And I actually started taking my job a lot more seriously after he was born. And it's such an easy narrative for us women. It says, okay, and I've heard these exact words, and I know they're very cringe, but हाँ अभी टाइम पास कर लेगी ऑफिस में, उसके बाद बच्चा हो जाएगा 2-3 साल के बाद तो उसमें ही बिजी रहेगी. And it made me cringe, and now it makes me cringe even more. And I actually thought, I was so conditioned at that time. I felt that maybe that's what will happen. Anyway, I'm not so serious about my career or something. I just want a job. Maybe once I have a kid, my kid will be my job. But I actually started realizing that I take my work more seriously now. With that said, I still make sure that I have my boundaries. Yesterday, it was very interesting. I was having a conversation with a group of girlfriends, and there was a hypothetical question that if you were offered the chief of staff of your CEO or something, would you take it? And I said I'd be so excited, but I wouldn't take it because I would not want to do something at the expense of how okay Romer is, or with the expense of spending time with Romer or being my mess with Romer. And I didn't even have to think about it. Not because it was a hypothetical opportunity, but because I knew I would say, like when I made this move, and moving countries at 40 is not an easy thing, but when I made this move, it was because Roma was getting the best. There were facilities better than what we were getting in Bangalore. There were interventions that were great. There's a fantastic program for differently abled people over here, which I wanted him to be a part of. It's There were a lot of other reasons than my work, and a lot of it was revolving around my child. So you do take career decisions around your children, and it's okay. It's okay. If somebody says, oh, your career should be about you, that's not true. Even things like how much compensation, how much money you make start affecting your child. So any career decision you take directly affects your child. Honestly, my career decisions would affect my child more than my solo trips. And it's something I'm very mindful of that. If he has a sports day on a Friday and I have an important meeting at the same time, that's the whole cliche that all parents, all working parents, whether it's moms, dads, all of us have to deal with it. But I do feel work directly impacts my child. So it's something I'm very conscious of. You have to take decisions that are hard, but it's okay. That's what being a parent is, no, at the end of the day.
Absolutely. That's I've been mulling about it for quite some time. To
Yeah.
work, home, how much is going to be my career. And for me, jobs have always been about how exciting, what do I learn from it now? What am I going to get now? What exciting new things is going to happen? It's never been about compensation, and it's about impact, or what difference do you make, or what are you going to learn? And I also have been talking about how that has been also a conditioning that we as women have. We were never told money was important, compensation is important. And today I realize how important it is. I want to be able to take care of my children and their education and their needs. And special needs are not easy. They are not. We talk about therapy as though it is a classist thing. We talk about therapy as though I have a choice about it. But if my child has autism or has any neurodivergence, you have to send them for occupational therapy. You have to send them for speech therapy. You have to find a different school for them. And everything comes at a cost. And that cost is far higher, and you don't want to cut down on any options because you couldn't afford it. It's like
Yeah.
having an insurance policy. It's as simple as that. You
Yeah. And there's an added layer to this. And we also, at least for me, when I see how my son is, I've accepted the fact that he's never going to be independently earning. So for me, for a lot of parents like me, it's also a factor that I might have to stop work at 60, but the financial needs are still going to be three full people. Like when I see my parents now, right? They're in their 60s, but I'm independent. They don't have to factor me in, but I have to factor a special needs child in for the rest of his life or my life or whatever it is. So that's something a lot of parents don't think about when they talk about careers. But we still have a long life after our careers, and we need to continue having that earning potential without a job. So that what after is not just about health anymore. It's also about this.
Yeah, it's about not just the end of your life, it's about the end of their lives. So long time. And I think we had Sharmila on our podcast who talked about planning your finances, because this neurodivergent road is extremely expensive and nobody tells you what costs are, and now inflation hitting it, and there's always going to be new therapies available as time goes by, and you want your child to access those. Going, making a country switch and being able to earn in that so that your child can get access to that is a choice that you have to make, a difficult one, but it has to be done. And yeah, it's very important to keep certain things in perspective. And we are always talking about money is that's not important. It will come when you do, etc., etc. But we can't afford to wait for it anymore.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's the reality of it. What would you say to Aparna from the day that she got the diagnosis?
I would tell her three things. It's not going to get better. It doesn't mean that it gets worse, but it's not going to get better. Your definition of better will keep changing, but it won't get better. And that is so important because we keep living in the hope that they'll be fine, they'll be fine. What is fine? So every time we had to move the goalpost of fine. So that was the first thing I'd say. The second thing I'd say is let go. You don't have to be in control all the time. If he needs the medication, it isn't about you. This is something bigger than you. If he needs any extra intervention, again, it's not about you. This is bigger than you. A lot of things are bigger than you. Relax and let go. A lot of whether it's my stress or a lot of it comes from there. And maybe if I look back, letting go a little earlier or something would have been nice, but it's okay. It taught me a lot of lessons. And the third thing, the Aparna then also did it very diligently, and the Aparna now also does it very diligently. Be grateful for your friends, for the people around you, even for your child. Be grateful. That gratitude some days is so hard to come by. I have had a lot of why me, why him. I still go through it. And it's nothing that I'm ashamed of. I'm okay going on my pity parties. I'm fine once in a while. I don't have a problem with it. It is going to happen. Those days are going to come. Those days are going to go. But be grateful. And maybe there's also a fourth one. This is something very powerful. When Romer was about 4 years old, I took a work sabbatical for 6 months. And I had a really understanding boss, and she's a great mom herself, and very nice lady, and somebody whom I keep remembering every now and then, and I'm very grateful for her as well. She told me that, listen, if you're doing this, if you're taking time off to be with him, don't treat him as a project. Don't treat him as a substitute for your work. Don't say that I've taken 6 months off, I want you to do this. I've taken 6 months off, I want you to do that. This is not a choice he made for you. This is a choice you made for you. So at any time, think of it as something you are doing for you. And do not ever, whether it's now or anytime, don't ever treat him as a project. That is something I have not forgotten. I would probably tell Aparna on day one that everything about him is not a project. And that's very important, I think, for any neurodivergent mom. I have seen people go overboard with diets and gluten free and casein free and only millets and no cruciferous vegetables, for example, or no this or no that, or you do your pandas diet or you do your biomed. And we do so many things, we experiment. That's the only choice we have. We have to experiment. But everything doesn't need to be a project. So that's something I would tell not only me, but a lot of other folks.
Anything else that you would like to tell the other folks?
The world could use a lot more love.
Yeah. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me.
It is amazing the honesty in which we both have always spoken with about
Yes.
relationships and what you bring in and your challenges and your relationship with your parents, your spouse, your partner. We've seen that changing, and you've always kept one thing very honest and vulnerable about it, real about everything. And for that, I am very grateful for. And thank you for coming on the podcast. And
Thank you for having me.
yeah, it's lovely to have that conversation with you.
Likewise.
Yeah. Thank you, Aparna, for your honesty, your vulnerability, and your wisdom.
Thank you.
If you're listening in and you're on a similar journey, know that you're not alone. The caregiving may change, the relationships may change, the city may change, the country may change, the support may change, but our children still need us, probably differently. So keep showing up, and I hope you're not feeling alone. Stay curious, stay kind, and remember, there's no such thing as a normal misfit. Have a great day.